Mr. Fay, are you ready? Should we call the meeting to order? It's almost 4. Ready to go? We'll call to order the meeting. This is the teacher negotiations meeting between the Dickinson School Board and the Dickinson Education Association. The second item on the agenda is introduction of teams, and I think we've all had changes in our teams. My name is Chris Fair. I'm the Vice President of the School Board.
I'm Sarah Ricks. I'm the School Board President.
Doug Sullivan, School Superintendent.
Jim Fay, Negotiator.
Lyle Smith, Negotiator.
Sarah Berglund, Negotiator.
And Jay Schobinger, Negotiator.
All right, thank you. Well, welcome to all the new negotiators. The third item on the agenda is the review and approval of the minutes from the October 14th, 2015 meeting. And those were previously sent out. Mrs. Peterson sent those out, and she didn't receive any input as far as things to change. Mr. Fay, was there anything?
I considering it was a 6-minute meeting.
Yeah, it was pretty short. Is there anything we needed to change? All right, if that's fine, then.
And I think that was pretty well closed when we signed the contract. I don't think it's relative to this one.
Okay. Well, if that's all right, then we will just go ahead and sign the minutes. You'll sign, I'll sign, we'll exchange and be done with that. You can keep a copy for yourself. Great. Thank you. Okay. Wish they were all like that. Nice, 6 minutes long. That was great. The next item on the agenda is to review and establish ground rules. What I did here is, since the teams really worked over 2 days last time, 2 meetings, on establishing ground rules, I looked at those from last year, and then we decided we would, with some adjustments, but use that as a good platform for ground rules for this year, since we both worked so hard on those. So I can pass those out to everybody.
Thank you.
And we sent these out prior to the meeting, but not much prior to, since,
Yesterday afternoon.
yes.
And I sent one back to you yesterday afternoon as well.
Okay.
Just about an hour and a half after you sent
Yeah.
ours. We sent you one as well.
Okay, all right.
Do you have copies of those?
What were your thoughts, Mr. Fay, or team members, in going through the proposed ground rules?
I thought I took them out because we sent ours.
Did you receive ours?
I saw them. I did not make copies.
I have them. I do have some. I think there's a few there.
Thank you. Mr. Fay, do you have a suggestion as far as how we would proceed? What you're suggesting here?
Well, I think that my suggestion, number one, is to say the ground rules that what we did last time was based upon some trust issues that we had, and I think hopefully that we've overcome those trust issues. And secondly, that the ground rules that we're proposing to you are almost identical to ground rules that you currently use with the administrators during negotiations.
And my question would be, I guess, I attended the administrative negotiation meetings this year, and one of the reasons I did was to see what works good, and to try and maybe glean something from that. And the first thing that I noticed were the ground rules. They were clean. They were not a hindrance. I don't believe that ground rules should be cause for delay. And personally, I think that the ground rules that you were using in the administrators' negotiations, there's demand professionalism at the table, and I think the ones you're proposing, if I can be truthful, assume the lack of it, I guess. Sometimes less is more, I think. And they
Well,
worked.
Yeah,
They
but,
work.
yeah. But seeing as we're doing negotiations not with administrators now, but with teachers, so we want to address the concerns that we've had or that has been addressed at the table before. And we, so I guess we can go line by line through either one of these if that's what you'd like to do. I'm just asking a suggestion as for how you would like to proceed. The DEA, in my time on the board, has never proposed ground rules, so that's why I'm saying, how would you like to proceed? We can go item by item through either one if you want. And like I said, what the board is proposing is based on what both teams worked on. And we just finished negotiations, so that's where
And
we're at.
unfortunately, some of the things that we demanded that were taken out last time are back in.
Well, that certainly can be discussed,
I mean,
yes.
I just,
Do you want to,
I look at the one versus the other. One is a half page versus almost 2 pages of redundancy into a certain extent, including, rehash of law. For instance, we'll talk about the one that talks about the meeting will be within 30 days. Well, that's this meeting here. So why do we have to have it in ground law? Why do it have to be in ground rules? I think there's just some redundancy there. There's some a lot of legalese that is not very simple and easy to understand. And I look at the ground rules that was used for over here, and it's pretty easy. It's pretty simple, and I think it's very effective. And we do work for the same company.
Can I ask a question,
Go ahead.
please? Mr. Fay brings up a very good point. How is it that two groups of people, two associations working for the same company, going through the same process, can have such vastly different rules by which they conduct business? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
are you talking about the DEA and the school board?
The DEA and the administrative negotiators, same process, negotiating contracts. How can they have such vastly different rules? We work for the same company. Why should we be held to a different standard, or why should we have different rules, basically? I mean, I'm just asking.
Well, I guess I look at administrators and teachers as two different groups. So I don't look and I don't compare them at all, and I don't compare the rules for negotiation, the ground rules, to either one. I do know, I can tell you that my history as an administrative negotiator, usually we wrapped up the meetings in 1 or 2 sessions. And so it wasn't a long time. Also, the other part is, superintendent probably can speak more to this. I don't think that the administrators are a union. They're in a formal group, right? Is that, and so I'm not sure exactly about that, but that could be part of the difference as well. I don't.
But by law, they can still, they negotiate by law. And just like we negotiate by law
Well, they can, yeah, I guess.
Are they a union,
So-
Dr. Sullivan?
Mr. Smith, I guess I'd let you answer that question at this point.
I don't know,
Because my
sir.
question would be, because I'm really trying to understand the parameters of what the discussion is here. So is the DEA saying that it wants to negotiate a 2-year agreement? Like the
Well,
like the
No.
administrators do?
No.
Well, then how can two
How can be the same?
associations who work for the same entity approach something so differently?
I don't follow you, sir.
Well, I'm just asking a simple question. I mean, what you've implied is that the board needs to have the same rules for all of its negotiations. And the administrators have openly been willing to negotiate a 2-year agreement. And so the same rules seem to me that they need to go both directions. And so I'm just trying to clarify whether the DEA is interested in negotiating a 2-year agreement.
If I recall right, we did have 2-year agreement on the table last year, and it was the school board who did pull that off. Because the numbers were uncertain.
Well, I'm not sure that it was the school board that pulled it off.
Ms. Fair just agreed to it.
We did
It
have
was-
that
but
discussion.
We're not negotiating last year's contract.
Correct.
And so my question is,
And this is the first year in time that I've negotiated that we've had a 1-year contract because,
last
the numbers were uncertain and you guys had,
We had a 1-year contract before that because of the court case.
yeah.
so
So,
I'm just
yeah.
puzzled by that is all.
I don't see the
I'm just
correlation
puzzled.
between a 1-year or 2-year negotiated agreement and ground rules. I don't see that correlation at all,
Well,
because,
excuse me, I'm sorry for
no,
interrupting.
that's fine. I just don't see the correlation, I guess.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Sullivan,
last year the school board proposed a ground rule for a 2-year negotiation, just like they did with the administrators.
And it was never pulled off the table until the very end, when we got to the salaries, when when the school board
well, we
pulled it
did,
out.
that was a
And-
proposal as well.
Right.
I think we probably took it off the ground rules last time and put it into a proposal, because otherwise we wouldn't have agreed to
I
ground rules.
don't think it ever was in the ground rules
Oh, well,
for 2 years.
I don't remember that for sure.
I'm-
Anyway.
It was not approved as a ground rule,
Yeah.
that's true.
Anyway, going back, I feel like we're getting way off the topic, and the topic we're here to talk about is the contract negotiations with the teachers, representatives, and the school board. As far as, I can just only speak, my impression is that the administrators have always wanted a 2-year contract, they want to lock it in and be done, and that's how that is. So, speaking to that 2-year thing. As far as that, so, and normally those negotiations are done in 1 or 2 meetings. So it's pretty easy, but I really feel like we should get back. Did you have something,
Yeah,
Mrs.
Madam
Ricks?
Chair. So I wasn't a negotiator last year. I attended many of the meetings to observe. I guess my question is, was there a problem with the ground rules that we had last year? Can we go back to those and see if anything needs to be changed on those? I hear what you're saying about a difference. I don't know if that's something that we want to try and hash out right now. I think in the spirit of moving forward, can we go back to what we've agreed upon in the past?
Which this one here was only agreed upon one time
time.
last time. If we go back, I mean, my question to you is, do you want to be collaborative? And if that's the case, do we go back to the collaborative bargaining, which is only like 5 or 6, and do the attitudes?
Well, do we want to talk about the collaborative? That's the
I mean,
question?
because we did this more so when there was a lack of when we didn't have that collaborativeness, and I felt that we actually moved closer last time than we had in the past, which would then now talk about professionalism. This again, Hickey says, shows there's a kind of still a lack of trust. Because there's timelines in there and so forth. And as I said last time, whenever we stuck a timeline in there, that's setting us up. Because if we don't make it, it's setting us up for failure. It's setting us up for impasse. And we don't want that. You don't want that.
Well, talking about the if we're talking about collaborative bargaining, I know you just went to training. Did you have training in collaborative bargaining?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so, and I think I'm the only one here who's
Probably.
gone through the whole training. Mr. Fay went through part of it. So, I mean, that may not be something that's relevant to talk about actually pure collaborative bargaining. I think as we negotiate here, it seems like we do sort of a mixture of different types of bargaining, and I think you're right. If we can work together, it seems to work well. What I hear you saying is, there's some things that are objectionable in the ground rules that the board has proposed. Do you want to go through those? Can we go through those? Or are you not wanting to go through them? I mean, I need to get a baseline of where we're going to start and move forward.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that the ground rules that we've sent you as our proposal are not on the playing field. They're not.
Well, I believe that the spirit of what you have intended here, to me, are addressed in the ground rules, in the ground rules that we've proposed, because I think that I can understand what you are trying to say in the ground rules. I believe that I am understanding them. I may not be. I don't want to say that I totally am, because I'm not in your head, but I believe I am.
When I look at our ground rules or what the negotiators have, I just think it is professional and it demands professionalism. When I look at these ground rules, which we've only had one time, unless I'm mistaken,
This one time. Because the last one
they,
this one. That was the last, prior to the last one.
You know what?
This was 2013's.
Yeah, and there was a 14 and a 15, but there was little change between the two.
Yeah, just the date.
And
And the 15 one actually is the one that, I guess I have a copy of it here too. The 15 one is the one that was like this. This was the 2015 one. And 2014 was the year we went to impasse. So I mean, we were under the same collaborative.
I'm thinking the 14 one maybe had one fewer, there was something, I just had to reference that for another organization, and I was surprised that we had a 14 and a 15, so. And it's a little bit longer, it's very similar to that.
are there any ground rules in your proposal that you absolutely can't live without?
Well, is there anything in here that you find too objectionable to live with?
Yeah, I've got lines all the way through a lot of stuff. And
Do we want to just start at number 1 and go through it then?
so our ground rules are not even, the ones we proposed are not at all in the playing field at all.
Well, I mean, there is some, I would say there's some similarity to them, although I think it has been helpful to have some timelines and some guidelines set in the past. And going back quite a ways in negotiations, I do recall times that, say, an example would be, we said no new topics introduced after this date. And then something did happen, and we had to have both sides talk about that and, and allow something new to be introduced.
And that's actually number 4 here. The team agrees that no new agenda items will be proposed unless by mutual agreement.
Right.
So that's there.
Which would be similar to one that we have on here. If we want to go that way, I guess. Number 11. Which I think, are they pretty much the same?
They're similar, yes, but if you take a look at yours, they're saying we have 2 meetings to prioritize and create the problem statements, if we're going to do problem statements.
if
Yeah.
we're going to do that, yeah. Well, this is 2 meetings after the establishment of the ground rules.
Will be presented and prioritized. Where this one here says, after primary topics have been set and a second meeting has followed. It doesn't give 2 meetings to set and prioritize. It just says primary agenda is set and a second meeting has followed.
I noticed the word proposals. Did you mean topics? I mean, I don't understand what a proposal could be a salary proposal, or I'm just
Well-
wondering, because
Well,
all the other ones used
topics
to say
would be,
topics.
an example, in my mind, would be salary is a topic. A proposal would be percentages or amounts or
So you
something like that.
you do not want to have deadline for proposals then as the second meeting following the establishment of ground rules. That would say that after 2 meetings, our proposals are done.
I'm not following, could you?
Well,
explain?
we can list topics.
Or s- Oh, topics and proposals, the same thing? I mean, it's fine with me. I mean, I think when I was putting this together, I was just in my mind using the word proposal. Good clarification by the superintendent, we're talking about the same thing. Just in my mind, I'm thinking proposal, topic, I don't care. The wording is probably fine. If we want to change it, it's fine. I think when I was writing this, I remembered that it did take us a while to get through what the topics or proposals were and to understand what each one was about last time. If you remember, Mr. Fay, it took us a while just to get through, what did we have, well, there was 8, 10, I mean, there was a list.
Right.
And to understand what each one was.
Right.
That took a while. So I think that's why I was thinking 2 meetings after you establish your ground rules. That gives you 2 meetings to do the topics and to understand what they're about. That's what I was thinking. Is that different? Is that
There
different?
was no 2 meeting time limit. So if it took 3 meetings to get the clarifications out, you're limiting yourself to 2 rather than so if we only get to 4 of the 6 or 8 topics, is that all
I
we're
see
going to
what
do?
no, I see what you're saying, and I see what you're saying there. Okay. Well, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking this is similar to what we did last time, which is we throw all the
Well-
topics out and then we go back and question on each one of them. That's
Well, we have 12 on that last one, and we're up to
there's 13, on
13
this
here,
one.
and a lot more. I mean,
There's 13.
there's just, some of them are combined into meeting dates, notices, and location, or actually a couple of them here. So, let's go through point by point.
I'm fine with.
I mean, well, I'd be willing to, and I'll talk here a little bit. We can go through point by point, but we'd like to go through point by point ours as well at some point before we do anything. Before we.
Why don't we go? Well, excuse me. I'm sorry, Mr. Finn.
No, go ahead.
To your point, perhaps we could compare ones that are similar. Number 1, composition of teams, and your number 1, and try to see if that would work.
Yeah.
Do you have is there anything on number 1? We had one before that spelled out some different things about resource people, and I just put it into number 1.
And other representatives as it deems appropriate. I think that was an addition. I don't understand
Where's
that
that?
one. First sentence.
Oh, yeah, well, for me, an example would be if the superintendent was sitting on the board team. We can't have a quorum of board members.
I agree.
So, or perhaps the board would have someone else on, as a negotiator. We could have whatever those representatives. Right now, we just deem it appropriate to have who's sitting here, because we can't have any more of board members. I guess I should ask you if you agree. Is that your interpretation of it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it changes the composition of our negotiating team.
It was added, and anytime something's added, you wonder why, I guess.
And the addition of the last, from the board negotiations teams can make tentative agreements only, is not on the ground rules that we had last time either. And we understand, North Dakota Century Code, and I guess it's not, I don't think it's necessary to repeat it. We understand that we both have to take them back to that there's nothing in set in stone. Just like we can come up and say, yeah, we like this, we can take it back, but if they say no, we're coming back and saying sorry. You understand that, we understand that. I don't think that has to go in here.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have a feeling about that. We were also at negotiations training, and based on what other school boards have experienced, where they did make an agreement and the school board then said no, and here they said, yeah, we speak for, so they said, you really need to put that in there. We understand that you understand that we don't have a feeling that we need to keep it in, but we thought, well, if we all thought we should put it in, then we could put it in. We can take it out, but that's fine too. As long as, well, and I guess
Either that or
whenever we've signed
go
things,
with our
we've always put tentative agreements. So if you want to take that last sentence out, that's fine with me. Or the last two
Last two
sentences
sentences. Yeah.
about the board negotiators.
I can understand that, because if they do that, they're legal.
I agree.
I can understand having the quorum there. Absolutely.
I agree.
And the resource people we have to determine.
Is there anything else in the number one? Oh, we could just, if you, okay, well, I'm sorry, I can ask
Go
a
ahead.
bunch of questions. Just- How about, is there something else on number one?
And in regards to the resource people, we do not have to, we can have resource people at any point in time. There's not a specific number of meetings to, okay.
I think we've always done that.
We
In fact,
have.
sometimes we've had Mrs. McCormick gather data for all of us and use her as a resource for all of us, and that's fine. Because we could be in the middle and we need some more information.
In light of the fact that, I know that I signed a paper that said lead negotiator. I just happen to be the negotiator who was here last time. I don't see myself as any more lead than anybody else here. I would like to, if we're going to go with number one, minus the board negotiations on, at the end of DEA members, I would like to, put in there all being equal in the process.
Meaning all the DEA members are all
And
equal in the
you and
process.
us together. All of us sitting at this table are all equal in the process. Which is number one, basically, of ours, adding in your quorum, understanding the legality of the quorum.
I think that's
I
fine,
think that's
yeah.
fine. I have no problem with that.
The only question I have is, will you designate an individual who will be signing for the DEA? As we reach tentative agreements. I would assume your team will designate someone.
I would assume it would be one of us.
Go for it. All right. Okay.
I'm gonna guess it'll probably be me.
Okay. Well, I guess you can always just mention that we could put it in the minutes too. Okay, that's fine. Are we fine with number 1?
With those deletions and in addition.
Looks good.
Let's move on to number 2 then, unless there's something else on number 1. Okay, number 2, is there something on your proposed ground rules that relates to meeting dates, notices, and location?
Meetings will last a maximum of 2 hours unless agreed upon by consensus.
Mhm.
And I know that we have 90 minutes on this one. And I know that when we start getting into our morning meetings, which I'm sure we will have to do because of schedules, you know, we are going to be limited to the time period based upon minutes for school.
And our 3 actually addresses the last paragraph of 2 about target date for completing negotiations.
All right.
And I agree with Mr. Fay. We want to finish up quick too. Serious. But the way this is written, or the way they're all written, you know, you have a date unless agreed to by both parties. Well, of course, if we get to the end and we see we're going to be close, we're both going to agree to it. So I don't see what this paragraph is serving. I guess it's stating the obvious, I think.
Do you think it would be helpful, though, to have, because it says to agree to complete as soon as possible, is it helpful to have a target date, just so that when we're scheduling meetings, we say, oh, we need to meet more often because we're trying to finish by this time? Not that it's, and I think it says that we can extend it if we need to, because you're right, we don't want to force ourselves into an impasse situation. But I don't know, I think for me, it would be helpful to have a goal.
Last ground rules we set for 2015 stated this. Meetings will be scheduled at reasonable times upon the request of either party, allowing for some flexibility with schedules. In the event 2 or more members from one team cannot attend a regularly scheduled meeting, the meeting shall be either canceled or rescheduled to a time agreeable to both parties. Meetings will be scheduled for 1.5 hours, trying to avoid conflicts for team members unless both parties agree to go beyond 1.5 hour time limit. That was pretty simple and easy. And now we've added days. We've added your first negotiations meeting within 30 days, which this is. So ground rule wise, I don't know why we would have it in there.
And that's the law.
That's
I believe.
law. That's law.
Yep. Well, we're fine. I think we're fine just for eliminating that since we are having it. Well, maybe what we can do is if we could we'll just start at that first paragraph.
And I do believe that by law, do you have to, by law, post the negotiations meetings, send them to the press and things like that as well? Is that by law?
Because we are a committee of the
Government
board,
entity.
the board does, we're a committee of the board, so yes, we do.
So that would be also a law, which is redundant. In the meeting room, obviously we've always been here unless we've had a larger venue necessary. I just see there's a lot of redundancy, and I guess I don't understand why we need it. But
Well, I don't know. I guess it clearly says who's doing what. And I do recall when we moved some meetings to Hagen last
Yep.
year, we did have the discussion
2 years
amongst
ago,
us,
then.
2 years ago,
yeah,
just deciding, did someone put a sign on the door at the central administration office to let them know it's at Hagen? We did have that. Did someone actually do that? Because we moved it even though we had announced it to the public. So that was probably where my thought process was going there.
last year we were anticipating a large group for one particular meeting, and I believe I contacted Dr. Sullivan, I think, and they made arrangements in the room and accommodated the whole group.
Yeah,
I mean,
that worked out
that's-
well.
without it being in the ground rules, I guess is my point. It's just
Right.
something you do if you're polite.
Yep. If I could just go to that first sentence, I would like to put some sort, if either party would like to request a meeting that we haven't scheduled, it'd be nice if we would be able to have some sort of a time frame for a response. Whether it's 2 days or 2 weeks or whatever we decide, I think that also gives you a goal.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from with this. I do, because
know.
you and I had the conversation.
Yes, we did.
Okay. I think number one, we can avoid that by when we do correspondence with everybody. You know, so rather than sending me the ground rules, send everybody the ground rules. And I know I did that yesterday when I replied back to you. I did send it to Ms. Ricks and to everybody here as well, so that we're all on the same page. So that if somebody is gone, I was gone for a period of time last week, and somebody else can pick it up and say, yep, got it. Just let you know where we're at. So there is that it's just communication is what it is. It's communication, and being professional, that's the best thing to do.
Okay. But you do understand that negotiations were delayed last time because of that issue, I felt, and we were communicating with the DEA per the DEA's request of where everything was to be sent and
And
requested.
that DA
So-
request has changed.
Okay, so that's why it's in here this time. Although I'm thinking I would be surprised if we would need to meet extra if we are setting up our negotiations meetings, which we have done in the past. We try to set them up at the end. It would only be if something unusual happens. What are your thoughts?
This is my first experience, so. I think there's,
That's fine if we change it.
yeah, I mean, I think if we have a common understanding of the process, then we don't need to have it.
And I guess I would, Mr. Schobinger, do you have something you'd like to say?
Well, I was just looking down at the very last paragraph in number 2. Okay, I'm going to look at worst case scenario here. Okay, it says a target date for completing negotiations will be set no later than the first meeting following the established ground rules. Okay, so we establish
Being
ground
next
rules,
week.
we come, we set a date. Negotiations will not extend beyond this date unless the board and teachers agree to an extension. Well, if we don't get done by that date, and one group decides, hey, we're going to bow our neck and be stubborn, that's setting us up for failure.
Absolutely. And I would like to point out, Ms. Farrow, as well, is that the ground rules set for 2015 were signed July 16th, which would have been after yours and my conversation, which would have been after the issue that we
Right.
resolved. And if it wasn't important enough to put in last year's ground rules, now we're putting it in because of the previous thing. Is that saying that we didn't communicate well after?
Oh, I don't know. No, not necessarily. I just think, as Mrs. Ricks said, it just gives you something to shoot for. And I think we did have that discussion saying, okay, we're not going to be done by that day. Does everybody agree that we can extend them?
And I think something to shoot for is good, but I don't think we limit ourselves
And we
that's
did.
what it has to be.
We set a target date, because it's number 12. A target
Well-
date is to complete it, which actually becomes a part of your number 2 is our number 12, which limits the number, or now we're down some. It was a target date to complete the 2015-16 negotiations is August 19th, 2015. It doesn't say that we will not go past it unless we just set the target date. Yeah, and that was because we wanted to look at contracts and getting them out before the school year.
Right, and I do recall that did push us, saying, look, we only have a month left to go. We really need to have, which is why we ended up meeting so often.
I guess what I see as number 2 is taking at least 2 of these and sticking them into one. So
I think the target date is there, and it's also, time frame is under number 13, so, I mean. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is, it would say, starting at the very beginning of the paragraph, meetings must be scheduled at reasonable times upon the request of either party, allowing for some flexibility with schedules. Is that what I'm hearing? And that's the end of that paragraph?
Yeah, because that's identical to what's in our ground rules for 2015.
And the next paragraph,
2015, sorry.
you know, you're right, if it's according to law, we don't need to have it in there. But do you want to have that second sentence? I think we've really worked that out in the past, haven't we? If like you've said, well, we've got enough people, we can go even though someone's absent, and we've substituted in someone
Right.
in order to move negotiations forward.
Right, and we will do the same. You know, and that's just, I just think we need to have the open communication. I think that's the key.
All right, so I'm hearing that that second paragraph can go out as well.
The third one?
All right, and just based on our discussion that we've had here, are you thinking we would strike all of the third paragraph as well, or do you want to leave some of it there, where the meetings will be held?
So I don't have a problem with that one. And it does designate
Where it
that
is?
somebody's going to put a notice on the board in case one
Okay,
of us
well-
doesn't remember.
I'm just thinking, at least it's there to,
At least we know whose responsibility it is if it doesn't happen. So you want to leave in the third paragraph?
Okay, fine.
Good,
That's
okay.
fine.
All right, then the next one is, the fourth paragraph, meetings will be scheduled for 90 minutes. I'm pretty worn down by 90 minutes.
I am too.
and,
I don't think we want to go for more than 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, it's going to be the case of morning meetings. We can't go more than 90 minutes.
Well, and I do recall in the past, if you're making progress and it's close to 90 minutes, you can say, can we go for 15 more minutes and wrap it up? And a lot of times you're going to say no because you have to go and we just end it. Okay, so we'll leave that one. And the target date for completing negotiations,
I think
because
that's
that's also number 13.
I think that's redundant.
Okay, so that can go out, okay.
Repetitive.
Perfect. All right, we're down to number 3 now. Number 3. What are your thoughts on number 3?
I like our number 6.
Would you explain your reasoning with number 6 and what you mean?
I was going to ask, not trying to be coy, I was going to ask you that question. To me, not operating with a finite pool of funds means it's infinite. Or at the very least, you don't have $1.1 million to divide up all these different ways and fund a bus service and a bunch of other stuff. You know what I mean? Because I think that created a lot of hard feelings. It's the way I understand the process, and I'm also a rookie, is from what I'm reading, is it is our job to negotiate salaries. It's the, correct me if I'm wrong, the budget committee's job to say whether it's doable or not.
Well, so what I hear you saying is you're answering my question, which is fine, that's
Well,
okay.
I didn't know. I didn't know what it.
Well, the board does not have infinite resources.
I realize that.
So the board would not ever agree to say we do not have infinite, we have infinite resources to devote to salaries.
I agree.
So that's something that wouldn't go. And we probably would never say salaries won't decrease, because there could be something, an agreement that would be made that there may be some trade-offs. We don't want anyone to go back. We're not going to mess with the salary schedule. Everybody's would stay where they're at and so forth. But we would not agree to just a flat statement like that. But what I want to say, if I could explain my reasoning behind number 3, to avoid some things that have happened in the past, I would like to do what we did last time, which is to say, we all know, here's the salary schedule we're going to work with. We all have the same, we all know how much money it is. We're going to deal with all the same numbers. No games, it's all out in front. And I would even suggest that at one of our meetings, we have just a little refresher on all the finances and what we have available.
Overall, I thought that worked well last year, up until all of a sudden part of the money was taken away because we had to fund something for a bus. And now all of a sudden we started taking this money. Now instead of having here's the pool of resources for salaries, now with a little bit was taken away for this and a little was taken away for that. So the established number now wasn't the established number anymore. Because we came into the meeting and you said, oh, no, that's not right anymore because we have to pay for this and this and this now. And so then we had to go back and go, okay, now what? So if the established number is established number, then okay, but and now let's go over number 6 here. That's verbatim from what is in the negotiated the ground rules for the administrators. So there no salaries will decrease, and the board is not operating with the established funded pool of funding. I understand there's a lot more of us than them. I understand that, and we don't want to break the bank. However, we don't want to have all of a sudden, okay, we have to take some money out of this for that, this and that.
Right.
So that's my concern about that. So if we have the number, and that's the number, I don't want it to change 4 or 5 meetings down the road.
I think, to me, it's important that everybody on the negotiation team understands and knows, well, we have baseline data, revenue estimates. We all agree on what we're dealing with. So there isn't a surprise later on. And if we have that right in the beginning, we'll say maybe we put that on the agenda for next time. Then we always have that at each meeting, and you can see, well, if we did this, what would happen?
And my concern, my conversation I had with Mr. Reap was, okay, here's how much we have available, new funds available, and so forth. And if we use the number that, the percentage that's used for salaries based upon, what we've been reported to DPI, and I take that number divided by the amount, that percentage, and I get this number. That should be percentage for salaries. And that was the number that we agreed upon, and then all of a sudden we started to take a busing thing out of it.
Well,
And you recall that?
And teachers on special assignment, which may or may not be administrative duties, and there was some other things. It wasn't just the bus.
So,
There was other.
but that was the one that stuck out with me.
okay. So then my question is, are you wanting information and want to talk about what happened last time and additional information and why things happened, or?
No, I'm not saying that.
Or-
I understand.
okay.
I'm just saying that when we establish a number, if we establish a number, that's number is salaries.
Well, yeah.
And we're not going to be surprised by, oh, we're going to put this budget, take this money out of that budget as well.
I understand what you're saying. I also want everyone to understand that we're in the second year of the biennium, so we all know how much money is coming in generally, depending on our enrollment. And we are going to have some pretty good estimates of that. So it's not like when we are dreaming and hearing what the legislatures may be going to give us or not. We already know what it is.
And we're not naive. We understand what's happening.
So what I think, and I do understand, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Fay and Mr. Smith, and I totally understand that situation. And what I was thinking here is, if we have the same data and we have the same, we're dealing with it, and it's right here. So it's not you just go meet with Mr. Reap and then something different happens.
But we have the data here.
I know, but I'm saying, can we let's just do that and have it right up front, like at our next meeting, instead of, like you said, we brought it in 5 meetings later, whatever.
No,
that was.
we had the information, we brought the number, this is our established number, and then we started to take other things from it.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Sullivan,
Mr. Fay, I'm just trying to get some clarification in
No
my
problem.
mind here. Was there at any point that the administration said that all that money was available and going to go to teacher salaries, or did the administration characterize it as that's the flexibility that exists at this time?
It was here's the funds, and this is how much percentage we spend of our money on salaries. And that's, and that was information that originally
But I
received from Mr. Reap.
Yeah, I didn't sit in on the conversation,
Right.
so I'm not sure how it
So,
was
and
characterized.
that's how we came up, if that's, what is being reported as amount of money is being spent on salaries, or percentage spent on salaries, that it would be spent on salaries. And then we started to, and I understand new positions coming up having to go in there, absolutely, because that's salaries. But then it was just some other things that were all of a sudden taking 100,000.
well, and, yeah,
Madam
I'm sorry,
Chair,
go ahead, Dr. Sullivan.
I just don't want there to be a misunderstanding further down the road, which apparently it sounds like there might have been. I think that we need to be careful about how we characterize, how the board and the DEA characterizes this issue. Because, as I said, I didn't sit in on the conversation, and we just need to be really careful that there's a clear understanding, because we don't need to create misunderstandings.
We create misunderstandings enough without even trying.
Yeah, and I'm afraid that might have been what occurred in this instance. Because, like I said, I didn't sit in on the conversation. But
I want to avoid misinformation and hard feelings and rumors. As proposed here, we would all get a financial lesson, or we'd all get that same information at our next meeting. And that's not saying that anyone can't go visit with Mr. Reap and say, I don't understand this, or now after you said it, I have more questions. But at least we've had that as a group, so there could be questions that maybe would benefit the whole group.
Mrs. Fair?
Mr. Smith?
I told you my understanding of our statement 6, which Mr. Fay is right in saying that it was verbatim from the administrative negotiation ground rules. What is your understanding of number 6? Because you negotiated, you were there.
I've been an administrative negotiator for a while.
I know. What does that statement mean? Because it's my question.
Well, I do recall, I can speak specifically to that because we were asking the administrators to change their salary schedule. And they were concerned that someone would go back in salary. So that was a ground rule that was added. That no one would go back, or no salaries would decrease because we were asking them to change their salary schedule. Ultimately, they didn't change their salary schedule, but we're now studying it. But that was something we had to do even before we could move forward. And it's really not right to say, change your salary schedule, and by the way, you're going to lose salary too. That wouldn't be the intention. The second part, my understanding is that the impression is that we'd have no budget, we have no constraints in money, which we do. So that's why I could not agree to the wording.
When was it added?
That's been, I don't remember when it was. It's been, I don't know. I couldn't tell you when it was. It's been a while. It wasn't last time. It was probably a previous time.
Okay.
And that goes, I remember when we did that, and once we gave them the assurance that we were not going to make anybody lose money, we were able to move forward. Because that wasn't the intention. The intention was to try to do something else with their schedule. We just need, in my opinion, we just need to understand that we do have finite money. So, I was in a meeting today where they said, and the school district really is the one that's taking the biggest bite out of your tax dollar. Isn't that right? And went on and on about the school district and how much taxing money we take and how we seem to have an infinite amount of money. I said, no, that is not true, but yeah.
Can I, question?
Yeah, Mr. Sheldon.
Early on, and I don't remember your exact words, but you kind of had a little apprehension about the no salaries will decrease.
Right.
Can you clarify that for me?
Well, as I explained, it was, when we put that in, was for the administrators, when we were asking them to look at their salary schedule, and some that we looked at would have shown if you placed them on
Right.
a salary schedule, they would have lost, someone would have lost salary. So a question, that's what I look here and say, well, we would never decrease anyone's salary. Well, what if there was an example of some fantastic benefit that we would give to teachers that would benefit you more than salary, and we ended up agreeing to decrease the salary. Not saying we would, that was an example that Mrs. Rickson I thought of. What would that actually mean? So that's where we came from with that.
Okay, thank you.
It's certainly not the board's intention.
No.
Right, no, I know, but you know how that
yeah.
may come about, how it might look.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's why I just asked for some clarification.
Yes. Well, the discussion is good because we're getting some of it into the minutes, so if we ever go back and say, well, I don't understand what Mr. Schobinger meant, well, it's probably in the minutes, or what I meant by what I said, it should be in the minutes then. Okay, so if we're talking about number 3, is there something there that we need to reword or rework?
I guess I'm based upon what we did last time and what we have this time, it's identical in wording, and I understand that. I just don't want the misunderstanding. So if we come in and say, here's how much money we have to work with in regards to negotiations, I don't want to have us all of a sudden lose some of that in the process of the negotiations. So I mean, if we agree upon this is the number, that's the number which we should continue to work with. So I would say we want to know exactly what the number is, and we want to agree upon what exactly the number is that we will have to spend on benefits and salary, not on busing.
Yeah. One thing that I just want to point out is, as you know, enrollment's a moving target, so if something drastic happened and we lost another 100 students or something, that would be brought up here, and here's our latest revenue projection. And we would bring that, that's always going to be brought to this table, any changes that we are forecasting. We being Mr. Reap, not me. I'm not a forecaster. So,
Mr. Fay.
yes, Mrs. Drake, sorry.
Do you feel, though, from your experiences last year, that you know the kinds of questions to ask to avoid that problem this year when Mr. Reap comes and talks to us? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm just wanting to know, because when we're dealing with a number, we want to deal with a number, because I'm plugging that number into the spreadsheet that Mr. Reap sent us.
Sure.
And I'm plugging it in, going, okay, this is how much money, and I'm plugging it in, trying to figure out benefits and figure out, and then all of a sudden, you guys are plugging in a different number because, oh, we have to use some of that. So, I just want to know that the number that we're playing with here is the negotiated for salaries and benefits.
Okay, so I think when Mr. Reap comes, we can ask him those sorts of questions. I think it's a concern, going back to this finite pool of funding. You can't have it both ways. We can't say this is the limit, the number, the only number that we're going to be able to use for salaries. And then still have flexibility. Does that make sense? So I think maybe the numbers that were being discussed last year, the reason you had problems is because then things came up. And because they gave you the bigger number, the number that might be available. I don't know. So I think we just need to make sure we ask Mr. Reeve the right questions.
We just don't want things to come up that would take
Right.
away from the number that we'd agreed upon, which is what happened.
Okay.
Well, and Mrs. Ricks, we did start negotiations pretty late last year. So that's another,
July.
yeah, so money's already being budgeted out of the new money, is my understanding of what could happen. Okay, number 3, anything to reword, change?
I would like to change first to at least second, to give us some time to vet the numbers. Just,
Well, we would be
Just simple-
providing the
Right.
information
Yeah,
at the
first
meeting.
yeah.
We meaning Mr. Reap, would be providing
well,
the information. And then, I mean, of course, you would be taking that back and doing
Right.
whatever, of course, but at least I think we would be able to agree on, or at least see all together, so we could ask questions. I think together, that would have been helpful to
And,
me.
and I think that
if-
we did that kind of last year because we went in with Mr. Reap and you guys used
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Reap as your resource person for the money. And then I met with him. So when we came back, we had already somewhat of an understanding of what was there.
I-
So,
Mr. Schobinger?
I think I don't know, maybe not, I might be putting words in your mouth, but as I read that now, team leads the same baseline data and revenue, which will be provided at the first negotiations meeting. Basically, I read that as, here they are, there's no discussion, because this is what it is, and there's nothing after that. Do you see where I'm?
Oh, I see. I guess that's totally not the intention.
Right, I know, but
I can see where you would say that. Do you have a comment on that, Dr. Sullivan? Otherwise, I'll go ahead.
Oh, Madam Chair, the only comment that I would make is that those numbers were jointly agreed to prior to being presented here, if I'm not mistaken.
So that would
So
be.
it wasn't a number that was prepared exclusively by the school district. It was a number that was developed between the school district and the DEA.
right, but it makes it sound like there's no conversation as far as the numbers go.
Well, my intention here would be that it's all transparent.
Right.
And we would see this all together. I'm not meeting with Mr. Reap, and you're not meeting with him on this issue. So we would be, I assume he'd put it up on the screen and go through explain where we're at, how we arrived at things. We could ask questions. That's what I'm trying, and what I was trying to avoid is this coming up, as you said, Mr. Fay, later on. Had we been able to have that in the beginning, perhaps, and all sat around together and asked questions, all of us together, then we might have been able to, say, anticipate where you were coming from rather than, and you would be, oh, okay. Or you might be saying you guys snuck that in, that wasn't really fair, or whatever you would, so, you know what I'm saying? So I'm anticipating this is more of a conversation. Is there a different way to word that to create that understanding?
Do we want to just add and discussed after be provided?
Provided and discussed?
and agreed
I don't care.
upon.
And
Well, and it says the agreed upon
Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
information, so we
Which
can,
is-
of
I mean-
course,
Yeah.
yep, well, yeah, if that's the
And agreed
stumbling.
upon.
So
Okay.
will be provided and discussed. We can add that.
Do we want discussed or do we want agreed upon? There were two suggestions.
The last sentence says agreed upon financial
Okay.
information, so if that's okay, what do you think about that?
Does that mean those numbers have to be agreed upon at that meeting?
Well, I don't know, I mean, I guess we usually
This
use.
is uncharted territory because we didn't do it last year.
Okay.
Right, but don't usually you say we need to take that back? I remember you saying several times,
Right.
we need to take that back and look at the numbers
Yeah.
and look at it and.
That was my concern.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it sound like, okay, even if we add that in there, great,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes it sound like we have to agree upon it in the first meeting, and
Oh, yeah,
You know-
well, you know,
You see that?
my
Madam
intention, yes, Dr. Sullivan.
Mr. Schobinger, this table actually never did agree on those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers were never really discussed and agreed
Right.
upon during the
But-
last negotiations. It was agreed upon between the district and the DEA prior to coming to this table. And getting, which I think is a very smooth process that helps to develop some collaboration
Right.
towards getting the number established.
But it,
Bringing it here, I think, could be a little bit more time consuming.
But you've already met with Mr. Reed?
I have not
No?
yet this
Oh,
year.
okay.
But that's what number 3 is doing, as
I
I
have not
read
this
it,
year.
I guess. I'm
Well, the intention of this is good. The intention is that we will all get the financial information and we'll be able to ask questions and we'll all know what we're all talking about. That's the intention of this
Okay.
one. It is not, the intention is not to say, here it is.
Right.
Okay.
That is not my intention. Because I think I've sensed in the past, especially Mr. Fay's frustration at different things regarding numbers. And so I want to avoid that.
Me too.
And we could also say, we need some more discussion, we need whatever.
okay.
If we're all being, if we're going to be open and honest, or maybe you'd say, I think it does look good. But keeping in mind, something could happen and we would then have to bring it back and say, well, here's a new issue to bring into that financial information, and we'd all have to see, how does that impact what we're talking about? It's the second year of the biennium, there's not going to be a lot of things happening, I don't think. Is there any? Okay, so, excuse me. Plus, all that financial information will be available at every meeting. We don't have to say the agreed upon information. We can just say the financial information will be available. We can have Mr. Reap available at every meeting to answer any questions, to present anything else. I'm thinking because of what we're facing this year, we probably want him at every meeting because he tracks the finances really on a daily basis, and we just need that.
I think we need, if we agree to number 3, the agreed upon financial information has to be there. The agreed upon. I think that's just as,
Okay. Are we okay with number 3? With the addition of "and discussed"?
Can we table 3? I would like to see Mr. Reap's presentation and then have a little while to look at it and contemplate it. And
Well, that would be the intention of number 3.
I know, but when I read it, I think I agree with Mr. Schobinger in the fact that when I read this, it says the team will use the same baseline data and revenue estimates which will be provided at the first meeting. Okay. So if Mr. Reap comes and he presents the data, and we're looking through the data that we have from DPI, and something is not quite kosher and we can question it, but we've already agreed upon it,
Well, I would
You
hope
see
you'd
my
question,
dilemma?
I would hope you'd question it right there, and he should have a response. And he should and he should be able to find out
I have to think on
why
something.
where your question's coming from, is what
I'm
I
not
would
that
hope.
fast. This is fair. Sometimes I have to think on things.
Well,
I mean, I
do
would,
too.
it's hard to have a discussion and think of questions at the same time.
Well, what you could do, I just looked at this as the financial information is going to be available. I'm not saying, we could
Okay.
say, can we put this on the agenda for the next meeting? I'm not saying we have to agree that
Okay.
moment. And when I said agreed upon financial information, I'm thinking that, okay, we all understand what the per pupil payment is, and we're understanding that. Now, if there may be other things that we need to look at and bring back, I would say you could request to put that on the next agenda.
What about, and I'm just going to throw something off the cuff here, it is striking which will be provided at the first negotiation meeting following, teams will use the same baseline data and revenue estimates agreed upon prior to salaries and benefits being discussed.
Well, the issue with that would be that there may be other issues that would also cost money. Maybe other topics or proposals that
Like?
would cost money. Well, I don't know.
Because, that would be a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying prior to salaries and benefits being discussed.
Dr. Sullivan,
And that wouldn't,
Madam Chair,
yeah.
Mr. Fate, part of the reason, as I'm sure that you're aware, and I'm not trying to preach to the choir, for ground rules is to help the parties have an established procedure for proceeding in meetings and proceeding forward. It's hard to proceed with ground rules when they haven't all been established. guess maybe I'm not being clear, but I'm not sure that moving forward, if people don't understand at the outset what's available, how that works.
I guess what for me it takes and clarifies his question with, okay, if it's after the first meeting and this is the number, whether we've agreed upon it or not, it just says it will be agreed upon prior to us setting, discussing salaries and benefits.
And I don't see how this is not saying that. Because we're not gonna set salary and benefits at the next meeting.
No.
No, we're not.
But we will get a presentation on financials,
Well, I thought it was important to do that right away.
but we might not agree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well, then,
And that was my concern. It makes it sound like we have to agree in the first meeting.
no, because I would anticipate that you might say, let's put that on the agenda for next time. And that might be our first item, and you'd say, okay. And in the meantime, I would hope you might contact Mr. Reap and say, this is our question. Can you explain that to everybody at the next meeting? I would hope that would be a good procedure to follow.
So does striking agreed upon resolve, but Mr. Fay wants it there, so.
I understand, the team's using the same baseline data so that we have, because it worked well last year. And it worked much better than it was
Yes.
the prior time. I understand that. I really don't like that second statement. And I understand, you're coming from that we're going to make that presentation, but there's no definite wording there that says that we have time to take it back and look at it and then come back to agree upon it.
But I think later here, we do say that there will be an agenda established at the end of each session for the next meeting, and that would be an opportunity to put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
But if we sign the ground rules, we're basically saying that whatever's presented there is going to be the number we use. If we follow this verbatim. I mean, if we follow this just as it's written, that's what I'm reading, and that's what Mr. Schobringer is reading, I'm thinking.
I don't read it that way, but I'm just looking at it as information's being provided. And I would assume that everybody's going to ask questions about what happens to this cell if we do this. Well, of course you'd ask that
Okay.
question.
So if we leave in which will be provided at the first negotiation meeting following establishing the ground rules, period, is that saying we are agreeing to them after that, on that meeting?
I don't think so.
Okay, where does it say it doesn't?
We're just saying
Because
that
it
the
just-
information is being provided, that's all it says. Dr.
Okay.
Sullivan?
I would have to go pull, do you have a copy of the ground rules that we used last time?
Yes, I do
May I
actually.
see it, please?
Is that the sign one? Yep, that is.
And my
Yeah,
intention...
the only
Okay.
the only difference is that this one says the agreed upon financial information, and that one said the agreed upon schedule. And I
And I
guess
guess-
the agreed upon financial information is what was accomplished last
Prior.
time prior.
Right.
And I think that's all this is trying to reflect, that, because I think, I'm not trying to speak for the vice president of the school board, but I think that's all she's trying to reflect, is that that was the process that was utilized last time when it was agreed upon prior to the meeting.
So are you looking for us to make that appointment with Mr. Reap like we did last time to use those numbers so potentially we could have that misunderstanding?
And that's not for me to answer, Madam Chair, but I
My
thought that
expect-
was your- I thought that was your intention.
Yeah, my expectation is that we're all going to get this presentation next time.
okay,
And then if there's if there's questions, you may want to meet with Mr. Reap. You may say, bring us more information next time, and that's where we're using, him as a resource person. And I know when we said this, we put that agreed upon salary schedule, it's agreed upon schedule. I mean, that's when we're all agreeing that this is a salary schedule we're working on, and that's really what I was trying to reflect also. There isn't some other salary schedule. This is the one we agreed we're using, and that's what I was thinking. you have anything to add to that? Does that?
I'm just trying to figure out how to address the concern. I don't know if adding another sentence in there specifically stating that the teams will have time to, reflect on the financials before agreeing on them. I don't know what would alleviate the problem.
Striking the last sentence, in my mind, would alleviate it.
No, not in my mind, because it still says after the first meeting, the number will be established.
You're right.
Well, baseline
but-
data and revenue estimates will be provided and discussed at the first meeting. That's how I read it.
And then the next
then-
meeting, says the agreed upon financial information will be available at each meeting. So it doesn't give us any time to take back and, as you said, reflect or digest that information. And
I like the way you just said that.
What did I say?
Well, you said baseline data and revenue estimates will be discussed at the first meeting. You didn't say the team will use.
It was Mrs. Berglund's words
Yeah.
there,
Oh.
not mine.
Oh, you said?
Yeah, she did say that.
she did. That was a while ago.
I was reading.
I know you have to take time to
That's why I said I'm a little slow. I agree. But it doesn't say that.
I can just, I can see, we did have this last time, and I can see Mr. Schobringer's point here, that it kind of says there that here's the number, and there's no time for reflection. So how do we write that in there?
I'm a little stumped at that one, Mr. Fay, because I know what I mean to say.
Sorry, didn't mean to open up.
I put a lot of thought into that one, and I did not, I wasn't even thinking when I wrote it that we were agreeing on anything. I was thinking we're getting a presentation, so we all have the information at the same time, and then we're asking questions, and that's really all I was thinking of.
Right. And that's I think that would be very important, incredibly important. We just want time to take it back and reflect upon it and massage the numbers a little bit and see where they match up with DPI numbers and everything else.
And ask questions.
Well, I would hope that we're asking questions next time and getting things clarified.
We added provided and discussed, correct?
Yep, which will be provided and discussed at the first, which would mean next time we meet, at the first negotiations meeting following the establishment of ground rules. Well, it wouldn't necessarily be next time, it's it's after we approve all the ground rules. Or we agree on them. And then, what I mean to say is that we are having the same financial information at every meeting. And if there's changes or something, that has to be brought to this table. If something happens, if there's some sort of a change. I'm just wanting to say something really simple, that the information is here, we all got it together, and then it's always going to be here when we negotiate.
We just have
That's
to.
what I'm trying to say, that the information is there.
And I know it said the agreed upon financial information will be available. We just have to figure out how long do we have to agree upon it.
I think we could add a sentence that says something like, something that it could be an agenda topic. We could say that financial, there's some, do you have something there to?
I just think we need something on the fact that both teams will have an opportunity to, for lack of better words, digest that information
Okay.
without having to do it in a 90-minute meeting, because that might not be enough.
Do you want to say something like, it is understood that both team, I don't know, I'd say both teams have a chance to think about that? It's understood that this could be a future agenda topic. It's understood that questions can be asked.
Put a language arts teacher on your committee.
Come on, you can't think of everything over here, you know?
So we got Sarah.
Yeah, Mrs. Wilkie sitting right there.
Well, she could think of a way to say that.
What about a sentence that says something like, teams will agree upon the financial information at the next subsequent meeting?
Or add a subsequent. meeting.
Or add a,
It is understood that teams can do
I
that?
like that.
I like that.
okay.
Sure.
Did Mrs. Peterson get it as said?
Well, we will, I'll give you my paper.
So teams will agree upon the financial information at a subsequent meeting.
I can live with that one.
Okay.
The only I'm just worried about that we're gonna agree on it. Like, what if we are not agreeing that you can't use this money for that? You know what I'm saying? That's setting up
I just don't want it to be a surprise. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, you know,
Well,
if
totally,
we're gonna be
yeah.
open and honest, you
Mhm.
know, this is what we have for salaries and benefits, you know, and I understand extraordinary issues coming up and being presented at the table,
Yes.
but not having a sheet of paper that says, oh, by the way, here's what we're subtracting from this now.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly how it happened last time.
And I think that's an argument to finish negotiations quickly, because I'm sure there are deadlines for some of those things.
Yep, some-
Contracts to be signed, like the busing issue, and
Mhm.
if the budget committee doesn't have this contract information of what we're planning to spend on salaries before they have to make those other commitments, I'm assuming that's
Mhm.
maybe where the run-ins happened
Mhm.
last year.
It is understood the teams will agree on the financial information at a subsequent meeting. Is that the
Yep.
understanding here? Okay. Okay. Are we okay with the last sentence?
Yes.
Or we could just say the financial information will be available, because that's really what I intend, that it's always going to be there.
Yeah, if we add in agreed upon at a subsequent meeting, we don't need agreed upon again.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Are we good with number 3? Okay, let's move on to number 4.
Mrs. Fair? Since this is a new one,
Yes.
I was wondering what your thoughts were in adding that.
Okay, here are my thoughts. I don't like to be surprised too much, especially when it's something that's complicated. I'm not saying that proposals would be submitted in advance, but I would be saying, what if, I think last time you provided additional information, we provided additional information, but we handed it out at the table, and then we're all looking at it, trying to figure out what it means, and we've got time constraints. So just like we both handed out our ground rules in advance, perhaps that would be, if we've asked for additional information on something, it could be disseminated, we could think about it, and we're ready to discuss when we come to the meeting. We did our homework, we read the assignment, we brought it in. That's what I'm trying to get at there. Now, and also, it could be, I think last time, both of us had things that we didn't get until the day of negotiations, and then you just bring it right there.
Mhm.
Bring it at the table. What are your thoughts on that? Is that, I thought that might speed the process on, if we could actually have time to read and digest ahead of time.
And depending upon what the negotiation topics
Well,
are.
depend on what it is.
Right, you know, the language issues can be definitely done like that, but again,
Mhm.
just like you said, salary proposals and things like that.
I would say not any proposals, just if there's a supplemental handout.
Okay.
For example, I think last time you provided some information from other school districts. Well, that's hard to look at all those papers right sitting here at the table, but at least you've had, if we had it ahead of time, we'd have the opportunity to look it over, and then maybe have questions ready. That was my intention from that one.
I like that too.
Thank you for the
Is that right?
explanation.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'm okay.
At least nobody can call a witness the day of the trial.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
That's number 6.
Meeting facilitator chairperson, Mr. Fay, thoughts?
Last year, in our ground rules, we did have the subsequent meetings being chaired by opposite sides, which, like you said earlier, you know, we changed after the fact because it was a whole lot easier to concentrate and to focus on what we're doing when we're not focusing on the meeting. And frankly, I'm actually kind of surprised that Dr. Sullivan's not chairing today's meeting. Based upon the success I thought that we had last year with it.
Just to speak to that, Dr. Sullivan did not want to assume that would be how you'd want to proceed, so he asked me to chair the meeting today.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So he's already doing that. We have 5 minutes to debrief and set the next meeting. So are we ending at number 5? We've agreed on that?
You have
That's
an
as far as
issue
we
with-
went?
with-
I
I
like
would,
5.
I would like to say that we agree with number 5 wholeheartedly, and that it would alleviate a lot of the pressure of all of us having to prepare, do the agenda, and so forth, like we have in the past.
Okay, well, thank you. I thought it worked really well, and I don't think we really had a chance to totally talk about how it went. So for debriefing, we introduced all the new team members and welcomed them. We reviewed and approved the October 14th meeting minutes, and then we have made it through number 5 of the proposed ground rules, making some changes, revisions, and so forth. Our next meeting date and time, and it should say the agenda as well, agenda topic, agenda to set that. But what would we be doing, what's looking like a good time frame for the next meeting? Your calendar.
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible, with the understanding you and I both.
Track starts next
start
Friday,
back
or next
on-
Monday.
On Monday.
Okay. So you're thinking, would you like to meet next week? This week? Next week?
Well, I think the big
Tomorrow.
one will be, what's that?
So, we can't be tomorrow because
That's
of
right, we
Region
couldn't
7
do-
volleyball.
Yeah, you guys have a lot going on over there right now.
And half the table crew sitting right here.
I was gonna say, yeah, I know that you've got a lot going on. So this week's out. What about next week? Is there a day or date?
And I think next week we could be open because we're gonna be inside anyway, most likely.
Right.
So,
Are you thinking the 4 o'clock, or are you thinking evening?
I'm thinking probably 4 o'clock. You know,
Early evening?
Right.
We might be able to get away with that.
For a week. For a
little
week.
time. Sure.
If we could avoid Tuesday and Wednesday, I have student meetings after school right away, so I could do Thursday.
I'm unavailable Thursday.
Okay.
Do you want to
Do we wanna do
should we try
morning
right away
meeting?
Monday?
and try right away Monday.
I am out of town Monday,
Okay.
but I may be able to make it back.
Madam Chair, there's a district-wide technology meeting Monday.
Okay, so that won't work.
4
Well,
You're in that meeting, right?
Then
Okay.
do we
We go in the morning?
Could we do
Can I-
like 7 a.m. on Wednesday or something?
Would we be, would it be all right to possibly go in the morning?
It depends on the day, because Mrs. Ricks has 5 little boys and a husband who goes to work at 7 in the morning. So it depends on the day.
I have to be able to get back to my house by 7:30. So if we want to do them at 6 o'clock in the morning, then that's a potential. I know that's difficult. I apologize for the inconvenience.
Mrs. Ricks no need to apologize.
Yeah.
Because it's the same reason, all of us, we like to be in our classrooms early as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
we don't want to be here till 8 o'clock because
Oh, yeah.
that puts us at a disadvantage for our students, and we're here for our students.
Do we want to look at the next week then, maybe?
Is Friday out?
Friday?
For
Like this Friday? Like
Friday the
today's-
4th,
Oh.
if we were looking
That's,
at
that's,
last
that's
week.
that's a school day.
Is that was something
that's-
going on?
There was no
There's
school
no-
that
there's
day.
no school that
school
day.
that
That's
day?
West Region basketball.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay,
West
that's right,
Basketball.
yeah. Doesn't involve me, so I don't have that down. So the 4th is out, the Thursday, the 3rd, you're saying is out? Was there something about Monday other than me?
District-wide
Oh, the technology meeting, okay, so Monday's out.
Unless we do go in the morning and we
Well,
could.
we change location? We'll keep it, he's not available.
Yeah, he's not available, so he has to be there. You know what your husband's schedule is,
Yeah, I have my husband's schedule, so.
but what is this the other day that he's,
Oh, for morning?
yeah, that he doesn't have to go early?
Friday the 4th. That's no
That's no
school.
school.
He's on call that whole next week.
case that doesn't
Well, I
work.
mean, my meeting is
In the
right after
morning.
school.
Yeah, I mean, I can get babysitters in the afternoon and evenings.
Third,
That's hard to find a babysitter at 6 o'clock.
That is hard,
Okay.
yeah.
What
is Nick
about,
yet?
what about a Tuesday or Wednesday at 4:30?
My meeting.
Because
for
the
both
preferred
of us
meeting
should
is-
be
Oh,
Tuesday then.
okay.
okay. Yeah, we were thinking
that
it was all day, so Tuesday or Wednesday works for me. Is Wednesday good for you at 4:30?
No.
Either.
No.
RACTC on Wednesday.
Oh, RACTC on Wednesday, so.
It does start at 5:30, but
That's at
Mr.
5:30.
Seeks is, I think, going to go to that one. Would you be here?
You guys are gonna, but you're gonna be gone.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Tuesday,
Okay.
Tuesday at 4:30.
Tuesday at 4:30.
Tuesday at 4:30?
I can do Tuesdays.
Okay, if I have. Okay, Tuesday at 4:30.
Is that good for you, Dr. Sullivan?
Okay,
May I
Tuesday.
ask which Tuesday so I can look at his calendar?
March 1st.
March 1st. If you would check the calendar, please. 4:30. All right, and then the agenda for that meeting is going to be reviewing and establishing ground rules. And I'm not sure we'll make it through anything else. That'll take us till 6 o'clock. I mean, if you were going a 90-minute meeting, and maybe we don't want to even try to squeeze anything else in there. Okay, so we have our next meeting Tuesday, March 1st, 4:30 PM here at Central Administration Office in the boardroom. And the agenda is review and establish the ground rules. I guess we will also have minutes to approve. Anything further? Nope, okay, thank you. We'll
Thank you,
adjourn the
Mrs.
meeting.
Chair. Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Ricks. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
I'm only a minute and a half off. Look at that. Thanks to Dr. Sullivan, we kept talking.